Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join us for our webinar. We really do appreciate it. Today, we're going to be talking about collaboration and how we can really simplify it for your organization. And how we do that is using SharePoint. So next slide, please. So real quick, who we are. My name's Nick. I am the sales manager here at AlphaBOLD. I've been doing sales and account management as well as sales management for the past 10 years. And then we are joined by Brian Ashbrook, who is our Director of Business Applications. He's got a ton of experience, as you can see in his bullet points right there. But he's going to be taking us through the majority of today's presentation. I'm going to be sitting back, relaxing behind the scenes, just monitoring the questions box. So if there are any questions that do come up, feel free to enter them there and we can get those too. Actually, I see a question right now. You can't hear anything, Rick. Double check your audio settings. There should be a tab in the side that can help you out there. If there's anyone else having that issue, please let us know. Otherwise, that is us. Let's move on to that next slide. Hopefully, Rick, we can get you figured out. A little bit about who we are as AlphaBOLD as a company. So we are a IT consulting firm based out of Carlsbad, California. That's North County, San Diego. We have a bunch of practices over here, one being SharePoint, which we are going to be going over today. But we also have a Dynamics practice, AI, IoT, BI. We do some DevOps stuff, QA, and then we also have a NetSuite practice as well. What we do, ad hoc consulting, so projects, break fix stuff, kind of just helping customers out on those little things. We also do development work. We also do integration, so integrating all those different solutions and softwares that you have to make sure your business processes are as efficient as possible. And then we do optimization and solution optimization. The difference there is optimization. We work with companies to make sure their business processes are as efficient as possible. And then the solution optimization is we map those solutions and make those as efficient as possible for your business processes. How we do it, we have a thing called BOLD route, and that is our methodology here. It's blueprint, orchestrate, lead, and deliver. Blueprint is basically sitting down and finding out what your goals are and how best to achieve them and working out that process with you to give you full visibility. Orchestrate, that's us getting it done. Then we offer a train-the-trainer model. So we want our clients to take full responsibility, not full responsibility, but have some responsibility in their solution so that way they can take ownership and manage it on their own and not have to come to us every single time something comes up. And then we have something we really pride ourselves on, which is our post-go live support. So working with the customer to make sure whatever we do for them is a success and that it continues to be a success for them. Because basically your success is our success. Here's a little bit about the industries we have served. It is a lot. We cover quite a few of them. But what we want you to take away from here is that no matter what industry you're in, we can probably help you out there. And we also like to take our experiences from one industry and see if they work for another industry because maybe you haven't thought of it that way. And basically just trying to find that most efficient process possible. Next slide. Okay, so what we're going to be going over today, first we're going to look at the challenges that are faced with collaboration, especially staying connected with remote team members because that is obviously a big thing nowadays post-pandemic. And then we're going to look at managing documents, how to automate some processes using SharePoint. A lot of people don't know that you can do so. Knowledge management as well for internal and external employees. And then looking at successful internet portals. And throughout this, we're going to be looking at questions, so please feel free to answer or ask those. We'll also be doing a couple demos where Brian will kind of take us into our intranet and our SharePoint to show you kind of what we've done and maybe give you some ideas of what you can apply to your own organization. So with all that said, I'm going to stop talking. I'll be in the back taking a nap while Brian takes over here. And I'll pass it off to you, Brian.
Well, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate that, especially the napping part. All right. So to make everybody's experience a little bit easier, I'm actually going to turn off my camera here and let us focus just on the content and not my facial expressions. And hopefully that works out well for all of you as well. I wanted to start off, as Nick said, I have a broad background in technology, but my foundations were actually in finance and process related optimization. Then I moved into technology. And that what that helps me do is connect the two, the user experience and the drivers from an organization or business perspective, and how the technology can support and enable your ability to become optimized, become efficient, and ultimately what I like to measure is effectiveness. So to start off, I wanted to just give us a starting point for what is SharePoint in case not everybody has a background in understanding what that is. Let's see if we get the slide to work with this. There we go. And what we have here is reasons that we look at SharePoint and what it brings to us. It just most people know of it as a file repository that can be on-premise or up in the cloud. But we're going to talk about it and how to put that to use. But what it does, it gives you a platform by which to digitize your environment. And we all talk about trying to go green these days and how we're going to save the planet. Well, this is one of those ways you can make a small gesture in that direction. By digitizing your environment, obviously you're not going to have as much storage, you're not going to have paper that's within your office environment. And if folks are all remote, as we'll talk, having your information digitized obviously allows you to connect then. SharePoint is a part of the Microsoft ecosystem. It is out of the box integrated with different parts of Office 365, and as well as the technology platform of Azure. And in doing so, it actually is able to be used on any device, such as your mobile phone, Android or iOS. You could, of course, use it on a tablet or on your PC, whether it's Mac or PC. It's browser-based, so that by being browser-based, it allows it to be available from any device. One of the things that we like to get out of our experience with SharePoint is how we now translate just having that information into actually becoming a collaborative platform. And we can all probably have our own opinions on what collaboration really is, but I believe that in the end, it's not just the sharing information, but now making that information actionable and a dependable resource for you that you can access anywhere, anytime. I mentioned how it is already integrated with the Microsoft platform out of the box. So there's a number of integration points that allows you to automatically share documents there and retrieve them and edit them, either online through Office Online or download it to a local version of PowerPoint or Word or Excel, and still have that as a shared document where any updates you do automatically go to the SharePoint shared file. So there's that. It has a simple security model that builds on what security you have either for Office 365, or if you go further and use the Azure platform for information management and so forth, you can leverage that to control varying degrees of where that access is, where it can be accessed from, whether or not how folks can interact with it. But it uses some similar ideas as what folks may have used in their Active Directory or network on-premise, such as groups and individuals, and you can assign them specific roles. The roles are limited within SharePoint out of the box, but they generally fit the bill, and we can talk about where you may have the need to make that more precise. But for the most part, it does that, and it's very rare that we find somebody that has a need that outside of what it does out of the box. Anyway, it is of course accessible throughout the environment. You can integrate with multiple systems. Of course, the Microsoft environment, like even Dynamics, Teams, stream other tools that are part of the Microsoft environment. They're out of the box, and there are a lot of hooks that are actually available for other systems, whether it's an ERP, a CRM, or another system you may have a need that may be for marketing or other purposes. By having those hooks, you can then leverage this platform now as part of what we refer to as an information architecture, and it really gets into the fundamental ways and how you share information, not just the typical file and email methodology. And then once you have it there, then you can actually develop branding and other pieces to expand into full-blown intranets if you want to go there. There are a lot of utilities that we're going to talk about. These are things you can do. It's about building blocks and how you want to necessarily leverage that platform, how far you want to go with it to make it an invaluable tool set within your organization. Okay, and forgive me along the way here if I get a little dry as we're talking about some of these things. I was asked to add in all types of humor, and I told them that was a dangerous prospect, so I'll try to keep it light when I do go there. For now, I wanted to just give a really simplified picture of how SharePoint fits within your organization. These things I somewhat talked about just a moment ago, but you have your Office, OneDrive, and SharePoint. Those things, if you're using Office, you get those abilities depending, of course, on your license that you use or different options. But you get a certain amount of storage with OneDrive and SharePoint. The ability to use that within your organization, you have that once you're using Office 365. You can enhance that immensely if you're using other aspects of the Azure and Microsoft platform to increase security, to integrate different server environments, if you're using integration services and so forth. Allows you to get to where you can even protect different types of data, not necessarily on a file and folder basis, but based off other types of categorization. So you have your internal users, which of course could be anybody that's sitting in the office, different departments, different offices, different cubicles. It could be somebody that's on their phone, but they are still internal users, not necessarily sitting in the office. They could be working from home, or they could be out in the field or at a coffee shop or something like that. And if you allow it, they would be able to have access from those different locations. Likewise, you can go beyond just what you have internally. You can actually use SharePoint as a safe and secure way to share information together with your partners, your customers, or if you have consultants and other folks that you want to bring in, ad hoc users, you can actually use SharePoint for that as well. And you have the ability to use the same access controls you do for internal users, extend that to those external, and you can make it only read-only. You can allow them to interact with it as if they were part of your organization. And you have the ability to lock that down to specific areas where they have that kind of access without having access to the rest of your intranet or SharePoint environment. Okay, next I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the common challenges that we have encountered from working with customers. My own experience in those 30 years along the way, I've run into a few things, quite a few challenges along the way, and how a lot of us will share in some of these challenges and what we're trying to address within our business environment today. And there's an unlimited list of ways we can go there. We're going to sort of create a little focus around what those challenges are. And to start, we have a short list, but this is going to be the focus of the rest of our webinar today, trying to show you how we're going to use SharePoint to address these concerns. These are all things that we've dealt with, I'm sure of, today with COVID and just the transitioning of a more remote workforce. How do you still keep people connected to the organization and sharing information and feel secure about how you're doing that? That can be dealing with from a company identity level to your cultural alignment, to news and events, to just sharing those files and related pieces so that you are collaborating. It could be, again, we talked about if you have a remote workforce, it's really important that your information is digitized so that you can easily share that. Paper bases. We want to support the Postal Service as they continue to struggle, but at the same time, we've got to do what's right for the environment and to connect our office. And SharePoint has ability out of the box to do some simplified automation, basic flows and approval flow of things. It actually integrates with a Microsoft Power Automate services to allow you to build fully matured process integrations and flows from decision points to moving data from point A to point B, connecting multiple systems. So it has that ability. For the purposes of what we're here, we're just going to show what that looks like, but we're not going to get into all the details because we're trying to simplify first to make sure that as you're considering SharePoint and how you're using it within your organization, we don't want to overcomplicate things. It's important, of course, next, we were talking about knowledge management. How do we have a common lexicon, taxonomy? How do we make it easy for people to be able to get access to information? How do we organize that so it is more usable and we can leverage the platform to help us there? But we will also talk about, as I mentioned, without doing a demo on all the different devices, we'll touch upon it a number of times that you can use this on any technology device such as a phone, tablet, or PC or Mac. And of course, one of the things that I find close to heart in this is the challenges, especially if you are a small organization trying to grow. It's really hard to scale, in particular support areas appropriately to the business needs and the size of your organization, what all you can support, right? And so anytime that you can sort of distribute that burden of technology-related choices such as access or adding new folders or adding a new page or site and all that, and it doesn't have to all go through your IT resources. It now has empowered you, it's enabled you to obviously perform with a little more alacrity and get things done, but also you feel that ownership and no longer that dependency on the IT group in order to be successful. In the end, it also allows them to focus on the value add pieces, and they don't have to worry about granting access and changing your groups and all that all the time. And that way they're focused on, again, whether it's security, network performance, building out the next system, less about the day-to-day interaction for just being able to collaborate successfully. So we're going to break this down so that we can consume it a little bit easier. To talk about all those things at once can be a little daunting, but we're going to break it down to two primary groups, and then I'm actually going to try to wrap it up talking about how you bring it together and look at an overall intranet versus just the individual components of it that help you become successful and leverage the platform. So let's see. Let's start with just again the remote folks and how we bring them into the mix, how we keep them connected, and how we are able to share information with them. And that allows you not only on a departmental or individual basis, but also as a corporate or enterprise-wide approach, allows you to have a shared platform for all this, so you can feel certain that it's easier for folks to know where to go to get things, and they don't have to have a roadmap that they keep offline about all the different things and the 300 different links that they need to use in order to be able to do their day-to-day work. This is how you use the platform to bring all that together and simplify. We'll talk a little bit in this first piece about just document file management and some of the challenges that come up around that. It's really making sure people understand the importance of things such as metadata. How you tag something will make it more searchable and accessible, therefore, to other team members and whatnot. And as we mentioned before, how you distribute some of those tasks that typically fall on the IT department that you want to then allow the owners of that information to be empowered to be able to do on their own. Doesn't mean you remove IT from it, but you give them the option. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to step in here and just kind of highlight, or I guess add to what you're saying. Really, SharePoint allows you to kind of move around or overcome the bottlenecking that may happen. One, with just users trying to find files or documents and not having to email someone and wait for them to respond, but also for the IT department, not having to email the IT department for permissions or anything like that, but you can email a department head directly. And so it really overcomes bottlenecking on two different fronts and makes everything a lot more efficient within an organization.
Spot on. And I refer to it. I started as a user, business, a functional user, and then I moved into the IT realm and worked a lot on the IT side. And I look at it as trying to separate the that which is value add versus the noise or other less value added tasks. So thanks, Nick. So next I'm gonna break it up a little bit here and actually show you our internal SharePoint site. And in doing so, it's one of those things where here at AlphaBOLD, we like to use the tools that we're actually trying to help others use as well. It helps us become better consumers of it and understand the advantages and limitations. So I'm going to switch over to our intranet for a moment, and hopefully everyone can see that just fine. You should see our landing page within SharePoint, which shows the AlphaBOLD in our menus.
Yep, we see it.
Great. So I wanted to just give a little overview of this before I get into specifically some of those challenges we just mentioned, but we may touch upon them along the way. So you can see, and I'm just moving my cursor over here so that I can highlight things, that we have a little bit of branding in here. We have, it looks like a home page, like a website, and we've used, these are out-of-the-box abilities that we have with SharePoint that you can do as well. You may not want to go or be able to go there for day one. Remember, we're going to talk about some of the building blocks that you're going to have, some of the functions, and then this is something perhaps you drive or work your way towards in time. All right. So without getting into details, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I'm going to talk about some of these other items we have on the page. But I mentioned earlier about how we were going to use the intranet to push information. So people have the information that they need to know on a timely basis, and they don't have to go figuring that stuff out. All right. The typical thing that we hear is, where do I go to get this? How do I know what's going on? What's happening in the organization? And you want to use your intranet to be able to enable them and actually remove the burden from HR, IT, marketing, and other folks. Now they have a platform to share all that. Now employees can, or team members can get to that on their own time as they need to. All right. You see what we've done is we have ours broken out. Here we call it practices. It's sort of how we group up. It's not exactly silos for us, but it's more focus areas. That could actually be different entities, subsidiaries, or divisions within your organization, or it depends upon how you're structured, how you need to access information. It could be major product categories. It's all dependent upon, again, how you guys are organized. We also have specific areas for departments. We have some pieces for our clients. We have other resources that we use. These are, we do a lot of internal content and sharing. We have the ability, we want to create a spot where folks, again, we have the ability for them to be able to go out there and see what type of training partners we've signed up with and allow them to navigate and connect with those areas on their own. We try to push information that we think everybody needs to know, right? We want, we have things that may be related to knowledge management and all that. We have specific things like here we're a consulting group, so we have to submit our timesheets. So folks don't have to know that you have to go to system A, system B, file folder XYZ in order to find and do the things I need to do to complete my obligations for my tasks as a employee. But also we have other things here which are related to engaging them and transparency around the processes and so forth. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Right. And then we also have out here connections to things such as these webinars and maybe online training that we've done internally. It could be knowledge-based items. How do you ask for how to get a copy of your paycheck? Well, do you want payroll to field that or accounting to field that call all the time, or do you want to just share that information so people know where to go and folks can stay focused? All right. It actually has here the ability to do search throughout the entire site, or if we go further into the site within the individual areas, and we'll show examples of that. And the reason why this is important is it actually builds on the naming that you use for your files, the tags, the flags, the different categorizations you can do on your files and folders and information that you share here. And all that information within SharePoint is constantly being updated, just like a search engine like Google. And you can then use this search to search throughout the SharePoint environment to be able to get access to that, just in case you didn't know how to navigate to it. So it's to empower the users. Okay. A couple things in here, breaking down to just how the file and folder sharing and so forth is. I have opened up here a number of different tabs just because I wanted to go ahead and make sure I had that figured out in advance. But this is just me clicking on, in this case was practice and SharePoint. We had in here some files that we had shared internally. We have a lot of other things that we're not showing, but this is just to show that we have some files here. When you get there, you have the ability to do certain functions. That's based off of what your security is, what these functions are that you have available, right? And if I click off, it actually has a couple different ways that I can add new content, new files, what have you, or fill out new forms, what we need to do, and it'll put it right here in this location. Now I can use, pardon me, click on Word. It's going to open up a new Word document that it's going to store right where we're looking at right now. So it's not like folks are going to work on it locally and then share it and you get things disconnected. If you're using SharePoint, that becomes your go-to as you start creating those documents. Likewise, if you had to, you're offline and you're working on something, writing up a proposal or policy updates or something like that, or just you're writing a nice story. You could, of course, do that and then come back here, and there are a number of ways that we can upload that information to share it on the site. You can go to the upload ability here. If we do that, you can do it based off files or folders, and then it will give you if I do that, let me go ahead and show it. So it'll go right to my file system and allow me to pick those items and load them. Again, I did it at a file basis. It allowed me to show folders as well. If I were working in offline and I had something stored locally, I've done something here where you see the sync button. I've actually done that, and what it's done, it's now synchronized that, so now it's part of my file system. And I can use it in this view just as I would coming up here to the browser. That's a great way to be able to allow the system to adapt to a user's preference, but still get the same constraints, the same rules, the same taxonomy, all those things that you're trying to do to enrich the overall information and how it's being used. I could also, if I had something that is on my local PC, I'd be able to drag it here, right? And it would then synchronize that up to the site. Here you can see that the cloud is showing that it's being stored in the cloud. I'm not storing it locally. Even if I have access, I click on it here, it's going to open up that file, and I'll be accessing it just as if I had opened it from here on the site. Okay. Here, just to show a different view, we actually created some tasks It's not just about files and folders. There are other things that you can do in here to help manage your day-to-day and milestones, deliverables. It could just be items that you want to get done over time. You can put them in here and you can prioritize them, and you come in and track them as well. You see how these are actually assigned to individuals. Now that can just be a tag, or later on we can use that as part of a process, an approval flow, in order to direct and notify somebody where this information is and how you to have them perform an action, whether it's review it, edit it, approve it, reject it, whatever it may be. And you can see over here on the right that it actually shows me some more of that information. If I had tags that I want to say this is about its sensitivity, if I wanted to tag its priority, if I wanted to put something, a date constraint in there as far as deadlines or things like that, these are all bits of information we could add to this data to enrich it and make it more useful. Now, I just showed things I just connected to myself, but one of the things we want to do is you want to control that access. It's not just access to everybody all the time, everywhere. You want to have controls in place. So what happens if somebody tries to click on something or go to a department or a file that they don't have access to? If, for example, I went to the marketing folder here, I would end up with a nice message like this, but that I can request access, and this can go to the owner, say somebody in marketing, or I could have other designees throughout the organization, or it could also go to your IT department and something where they get an email and literally they'll be able to say, hey, somebody's requested access to this. If I put an explanation in here, it would fill that out and include that in the email, and then I have something actionable. I can act on it right out of my email and approve them and go on about their business, and they'll be able to continue or have access, or you can deny them and provide an explanation. So it gives you a little bit of control, and that could work for internal users as well as external users. Again, these are options that you have when you set up a site or create a new folder. You can determine how you want to be able to allow new users to get access. Here, I know this is a little dry, folks, but I want to get through a lot of the material we have, so forgive me if I just keep pushing on, because I want to get on, be sure I address a lot of these challenges we brought up. Here, this is just showing, again, some of the metadata. We talked about being able to do other things. See how I have more options here than I had before. Before I was somewhat limited, only like, I think 6 options. Here, there's more information. There's details that show over here under more. If I had workflows, I could see that. Actually, if I had version control on, it would allow me to see that version history and have that option here as well. And I could automatically, if I had somebody had updated it, say this presentation after I had thought I had the final version of it, and it goes out there, and that's what the current document shows. If I go to version history, I can see what and who had posted the previous updates, and I can grab the one that I was most comfortable with. Typically, you have to go back to your IT department if you have to do a file restore for that. The only other way to do it is if you turn on that version control within a specific document, but there's a lot of user interaction with this. This is a way to control it from an enterprise level, the proper way you want to handle those things to ensure that you have that version control put in place and not have it to be something that accidentally slips through the cracks, right?
And Brian,
Yeah.
real quick, speaking of version control, we did have someone chime in, and they were wondering if you could speak to collaborating with MS projects across continents to develop timelines, version control, things along those lines. Can you give any insights there?
Well, with Microsoft Project, there are a couple of different ways. There's Project Online, and of course you have the desktop app as well. So I guess it depends upon a little bit how you're going about it. Mm-hmm. But there are integration points, being that it's Microsoft in there. And you can use this as a landing spot where you navigate to those items and have links. Just as we added a specific folder or what have you, I could upload, if I have it as an option, I can load links here, so it can have a link to external systems or sites or things like that. If you're using like Microsoft Project and you're saving multiple versions over time, Project has the ability to use baselines and other pieces built into it. But that's not the same as when you publish that project or you want to have that workspace. So you could definitely use it for that, just as a Word document or a PowerPoint or anything. Does that answer your question?
I sure hope so. If it didn't, then I will reach out to you after, or not you, but afterwards, and we will see if we can answer any more for you. Thank you, though.
Okay. Yeah. So, and there may be other questions that come up that we can't necessarily address right in line with what we're doing right here. I'd love to if we could, but if time doesn't permit, then we can do follow-ups with you.
Yeah.
All right. Happy to do that. I also wanted to show we have some other things here that if you're familiar with Canvas apps or Power Apps, you can do that here. That'd be like forms or other pieces to help you deal with data entry and how you post information, how you collect it. The automation piece allows us to deal with some of those basic flows, or later on we'll talk about the more complex flows when we come up here. Okay, I'm going to, actually I want to show one more thing before I switch back to the presentation. This is just another view. I just showed you before. It was just like your folder system, like your file explorer. And SharePoint, out of the box, you have the ability to use templates for a given site that allow you to then use it to drive some of that interaction and awareness of what's recent, or if you had news. In this case, we haven't actually added any news, but you can see most recent activity that, who has most recently updated a file, whether or not it's something you need to act upon. But over here, I also still have access to all those files and folders as we talked about or we showed before underneath the SharePoint site. Okay, so this is about how you think you best enable your group and enrich their experience. There are other ways that we can build things out here on the left on the navigation to add specific areas. If you want to have something project specific, you can break that out. If you want to have something that were form specific, you could do that. If you didn't want to have it underneath like a new document as a template, right, you would be able to put that out there as a link to those items. Common navigation pieces, things you need to know relevant to this, you can add that in here as well. And there's a lot of control you can do, and this is just out of the box. And then somewhat the sky's the limit if you think about if you wanted to customize it, but you're going to need some IT resources or specialists such as AlphaBOLD or others to help you with that. Okay, but we can show you how, and if you have the ability, it's there. It's just a matter of understanding and knowledge. Okay, so I'm going to switch back. That was just a quick overview of some of those challenges. Hopefully I get the right page here. Forgive me for this. And I think Nick wanted to take a quick pause and ask you guys a question.
Yeah, if anybody's been on one of our webinars, then they know I love polls. I like to hear feedback from people who attend. So I'm going to launch a poll real quick, see how you guys currently collaborate. If you guys are using SharePoint at this point, or are using Teams, Slack, are you only using email, or are you just kind of collaborating around the water cooler? Is that the only way you do it? We'd love to know and see if there's any places for improvement. Or let's see, looks like Teams and SharePoint are leading the pack right now, which is great to see. We got a couple people in the water cooler section, but we do have quite a few SharePoint users, which is great to see on this webinar. I'm going to leave this open for another 3 seconds. We do appreciate your feedback. This helps us create content in the future. So thank you very much, everybody. And Brian, back over to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Nick. Always fun with you in these polls. All right. As you can tell, we have a pretty fun candor with each other. So just wanted to talk about the remaining pieces that we wanted to cover during this webinar. Obviously, there are a lot more we can talk about offline, or maybe we should do a follow-up webinar based off, again, some of that feedback that you just provided, Nick. It really helps us. This next set, I've talked about a little, but just to focus on them, we talked about digitizing the environment. That's, again, enabling you to enrich the technology's ability to provide information and access to the information to your team, whether that's internal or external resources. And here we're going to show a little bit about sample automation, form entry, how to automate that process, what different ways that can look, what it can be for the person that submits it versus the person that's approving it, and how you can just out of the box some of the things that are available, and then you can of course take that to the nth degree if you want it. Talk about the knowledge management. We're going to show that search, how we put something in there, how it renders information to us, but it'll be based off that tagging or the file names and other pieces that we've done. Just to reiterate how we have, this is also doable across any device. And that's another item that's really important, certainly to me in my experience, but obviously more and more so, everyone's talking about security. How do I know that my information is secure? So we'll show a little bit of that. And I'm going to switch back to to the SharePoint site and show you these items. And hopefully you find that informative. And you don't get lost in the maze as the poor guy on the picture is trying to do. We're going to try to help you through that. So switching back to our site. All right, so we already talked about digitizing. We talked about the process automation. I'm going to show you something that we've done for our blogs. We have created the ability for people to submit blogs online, and then we have a review process for these. And this is just a landing page for where all those are. The actual submittal would happen here. And so we've used SharePoint. We created a form, right, that we capture all the required details that we need for the initial blog submittal that then goes under review. Now, we don't want to add layers of bureaucracy. We're trying to compress all that and flatten what those tiers look like as much as possible, but we're using the system or the technology to help us do that. Right? So if you're in an agile environment or whatever you're comfortable with the level of control and the horizontal aspect of flattening the organization, this comes a part of it. You can, of course, build in all those hierarchies and extra levels of review and so forth. Here, we're just capturing basically what is it, to give us the details, and how do I categorize it? We could have had 5 other categories on here. For our purposes, we don't have that need, right? Once that's submitted, here, they submit that, and that's now going to go into a review flow that is then something that managers or marketing or whoever is responsible for it to take take action. From the user perspective, they get to see that here in the dashboard is just basically a list of all those submittals. And this is just tracking it so they have an idea to know where all that is. It also allows other people on the team to be able to see what others have already submitted so they don't have to duplicate that work, right? So that transparency and seeing that before they start allows them to know whether or not what they planned is viable. When that comes back, then us as an approver, somebody would come in and be able to see all types of information about that. Remember, you see here on this right pane, this shows me like status, all the details of where it is, where it's coming from. You can see these are tags we have on it, who created it, when, and who it's assigned to right now, right? Over here on the right is where we could actually take that action. And here, if I wanted to say that, send this back to the author so that they need to edit it, I may have done some things when I opened it, I provided comments. Here I'd say, hey, this needs to be edited. And once I do that, it's going to kick off a flow, and that author and or others would be notified and know that they need to come back and take a look. right? So they had to do that without having to go through email, create separate emails and do things offline. It's now all inline and all connected. You can see that, as I mentioned, we added some additional tags around this so that we can then use that for some of our search abilities. Okay. And feel free if you have questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Post something in chat and let Nick know. He'll stop me if need be. So we take that, and I wanted to share that behind the scenes. You have the standard flows that a simple flow, just move it from A to B or notify somebody. If I want to have something that is more decision point processing and whatnot, I can then use the Power Automate platform of Microsoft to create extensive flows. And it's pretty unlimited, but I can actually connect to multiple systems, using links, building things dynamically, a lot more logic built around it. And I can actually, over time, if I wanted to, there's not much information on this one for me, but if I were to go to analytics, it would show me the elements relevant to me about this flow. So you can see how many times it's been submitted, how many have been approved, rejected, kicked back, what's pending work, etc. And I'd be able to take action on those. All right. And now that ability to see all that could be then presented back to you here or on that, the details over here on the right, depending upon how you want it to be done. Okay. So let's talk. I wanted to show you a little bit about the knowledge, right? The knowledge management. Come back here and see if this works. Just using the standard search, if I can type. All right. Now I go out there just like it would on Google. It's going to give me a few different options as to what information I can see. It tries to categorize it based off how the file or folder was uploaded and how it's been tagged. So it's going to try to do the same idea where it says, okay, I see automate used X number of times in here. This is the most relevant. And so it's trying to bring that up to the front. Or you can use these filters in order to simplify that. So I'm going to see what's been updated related to automation in the last 7 days or so. And you can easily do that. If you had additional information, maps, files, what have you, different reference points of sites, if you've set those up, or any images, you'd be able to see all that, and you can easily filter it. Again, like you're using, use Google as an example, or you can go from your regular search, you can switch to maps or images or other. This is very similar in that regard. Okay, so how it is able to render that, how it determines what to include, is based off of those bits of information that we include on the document. For example, if I want to look up something related to this title or something that's in the description, right? It's making all that information dynamically searchable. But to ease it, I could certainly do a search on CRM. Now it's going to include that in the taxonomy and how all this information comes to me, right? To make it easier for me to find information. And that's one of the ways that you build knowledge and access to the information throughout your organization. Here we have something. I'll go ahead and navigate to it. I haven't done much of the navigating throughout, but we have, oh, shoot, I can't get there. How about that? I wonder, I guess that goes to show that the access control is working the way we intended. But you would have internal or external related knowledge bases, right? To be able to empower employees to be more self-sufficient, right? Ultimately, most of us these days want to be able to just handle things on our own and not have to deal with the interruption in flow or just getting things done that requires us to step off and interact with IT or another department and all that. If I have that information, let's get it to them so that they can be proactively able to be manage that process from beginning to end and know exactly what they need to do. We showed before here how we've organized stuff related to knowledge management, related to training and how-tos. I believe I have access to this one. And you see, this is just a simple spot that we have things posted. We could have all types of other things out there, but I think if you had how to set up your direct deposit, how to, things related to onboarding, offboarding, it could be things related just to policies or procedures, or how to add a new vendor, how to request, how to order something through your online Staples or office supplies vendor or something like that. You'd have that here, and inside that you could have a document that allows them to get links to it, see how whatever the company login is, those type of things. So we highly recommend that, and it's very useful for how this platform now consolidates all that, so people don't have to keep all that on their own. You're now pushing that to them. So secure anywhere. So I showed you how I was able to block myself by trying to go to a site I didn't have access to, but I'm working internally, so I just don't have access. What happens if I were an external user trying to get access as well? So I created an incognito or a private browser session to act as if, or tell the system that they don't know who I am. And this is just to show you what would happen if somebody were to try to log in to my environment, and it doesn't know who I am. So I now have to go through the signing in and credentialing process. And this would work the same for an employee that would, or say a team member that wasn't logged in, or if it were, say, a customer or partner or a consultant that wanted to get access to something, they would have to go through this process, and you can set up multi-factor authentication and then use those things. And it's still going to, even after they sign in, it's still going to validate their access behind the scenes and only let them see what they want, because they may end up coming back to that lovely screen that I had up where it says, great, you asked for access, but you got access to our environment, but you don't have access to that document or that folder. So it's a way of securing that, and that's whether it's on the phone, tablet, or PC. Okay, so hopefully that was informative and not too drawn out for you. Let me get back to Nick. It's his turn.
I get to do another poll.
That's only if you want to.
So I'm going to launch one just asking how you feel about your current intranet and if it's empowering your organization. We know, just based on the last poll, some of you guys are using SharePoint. So is it something where you need help? It's not really doing everything that you need to, or all the way at the other end. Our intranet's great. We're just seeing what's going on. And somewhere in the middle, like, hey, we like it, but we need to elevate it. So it looks like got quite a few people saying their intranet's great, and quite a few people saying they want to elevate it. We're split about 50-50. All right, we'll leave it open for 2 more seconds. Perfect. Again, thank you guys for your responses. Brian, just so you know, time check, we do have a few minutes left.
Point taken. Thanks for sending it back. And the funny part is that now you're at the time crunch, and this is one of the most important things I wanted to share, but we've been looking at this throughout. So I'm going to, I guess, gloss over it a little, but it's important that the ultimate state is to take those, repositories information, those forms and the basic flows, and make them part of an overall approach to how you share information, and enabling and pushing that information out there, not only the platform, but the content. Internally to your organization, you can do it with SharePoint. You can set it at that corporate or at that top level, the home, or you can, as we talked about, we showed practices, but those could have been subsidiaries, right? Each one of them could have had their own branding and specific content and cultural related pieces that you want to push out. It also allows you to do that for your external partners. You could have a breakout area that's just for customers or just for vendors, and how they onboard within your organization, fill out the W-9s and submit the related documents and proof of banking details and things like that, right? But I wanted to show you an example of what a SharePoint environment would look like if you were trying to think of how would I do this. I use a simplified example, I get it. But important here is to show how I tried to flatten it out and not go too deep in the site build out. This does nothing to show the folders and content that I'm adding in each one of these, right? So it's separate. This is about the structure, and the other is about how we're actually the content and how we're using. but it's important that you probably want to consider how to separate out and make sure you have a clear place to communicate culture and values. This is you reinforce your mission, you reinforce whatever is important to the organization. It's a place to push people and be able to see that. And I'll show you that again on our homepage. You can see how we broke out specific areas here that are then by departments. And then you have some breakdown within that. This, for example, the legal piece you could have locked down, but under policies and procedures, you may have active pieces around there that you do share and make that public and allow team members to see. You could have talent management might be broken down, or you may have it public also, depends upon your need, performance management and so forth, which could be reviews. It could be the individual reviews or just the process around those and resources and so forth. IT, simple areas that we do that, help desk. You could, if you don't have a help desk system, you can use forms for how people submit those and so forth, and you can track them there and they can see it. The different ways that you can break that down. It also could have some how-tos, the things like that, that help people within IT, even external to IT, to be able to know what to do and what to expect. We see here that we pulled out the areas to show that, this is how you add on partners or additional subsidiaries that you, and how you structure your overall site. The idea is to flatten it as much as possible. And the reason for that is you want to make it manageable. If you go too deep, it really gets hard to move things around and to navigate. It also changes some of the complexity in how SharePoint builds its taxonomy. Not many folks actually run into it, but it can happen where the overall path, right, the address that it has to get to for a given document can be too long. So if you build too much structure in there, you don't have enough place for the name of your content or your file folder. It's all built into all your structure, and it can cause issues with navigation. So just a couple insights there. I think I had, before I talk about on this, I wanted to go back to our site and just show you some of that in practice before I turn it back over to Nick for closeout. But you see, these are some of those items that we talked about. We have some branding here that we can use throughout the site. This is an example of how we are pushing or sharing and reinforcing our core values. We're sharing the latest pertinent information for the organization and what folks need to know so that they can be included, involved, and know what's expected of them, upcoming items, recent updates, and so forth. We also use this for recognition. Again, as we did like submitting a blog, this here is also another automation where we create a special form and we we share that information as people are win an award or get recognized. We share it here so that folks not only get recognized in private, but they also get to share that throughout, with their peers and whatnot. And here we have an example of a anonymous or not suggestion box to easily have that submitted to go to leadership, to HR, to a given person, what have you. And you can do that not just on the home page, right? You can do that anywhere throughout the site if you want to do that in a given department or a given division. They have the ability to make that special to just them. Okay, I need to wrap up and get it back to Nick and let everybody else get on with their day. We've talked about all these things. What I wanted to just highlight is this governance piece. It's really important to make sure that you communicate how you want to use SharePoint in your environment and how people are able to add content, make new changes to like new pages, new sites, and how you set up the standard access to that. Is it broad? Is it very specific? And so you create a process or governance around that internally, and it's sort of required if you want to have a successful rollout of SharePoint. The other items I think we've talked about along the way, so I'm going to turn it over to Nick and get out of everybody's hair. Thank you so much, guys.
All right, thank you, Brian. I know we covered a lot. There's just still so much more we could cover with SharePoint, but we do appreciate what you were able to go over. If you don't mind going to that next slide. Want to thank everybody. Even one more because we don't have time, but any questions that are unanswered, we will get to you after this webinar. So one more slide. We do want to thank everybody for being here again. We do appreciate your time. As far as if you are interested in elevating your SharePoint or even adopting SharePoint, please talk to us. We'd love to help you out and kind of give you an assessment of what SharePoint can do for you or what next steps you can do. We are offering a promo for those who did attend and register. If you want to do something and start small, maybe you have a small little improvement to be made with SharePoint, we are offering a $500 discount on our first engagement. So if that interests you, please reach out to us. On the next slide, we have our contact information. Otherwise, we will be sending out the webinar recording after this and be in contact with you, so that way you do have our contact information in your emails. And otherwise, we will wrap this up, let you guys go because we are at time. But again, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.